Thanks for joining us today. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to our webinar where we're going to explore innovative strategies for enhancing wastewater management through our advanced pretreatment information management system, also known as PIMS. I'm Destiny, the sales coordinator here at Nexinite, and I'll be your host today. Thanks so much for joining us. Before we dive into the exciting content we've prepared today, I just have a couple of housekeeping items. So this webinar is being recorded. We will share that recording via email with all of you after we wrap up here. Feel free to share it with your colleagues who couldn't join us today. The presentation will last about 45 minutes. After that, we will have a 10-minute question and answer session. We do encourage you to ask questions. Please feel free to type them into the chat throughout the presentation, and we will address them at the end. Now, let me introduce to you our esteemed presenters. From Encina Wastewater Authority, we have Source Control Manager Robert Grigg and Source Control Inspector Michael Truong. Both bring a wealth of experience and insights from the front lines of wastewater management. Representing Nexinite, we are joined by Addison Bandoly, our modern workplace architect, and managing partner Michael Panagis. They've been pivotal in developing the technological solutions we will discuss today. Together, these four experts will guide us through the capabilities and benefits of our advanced PIMS solution. With that, let's begin our journey into enhancing wastewater management through innovative technology.
Just to give you a little bit of an overview about Encina Wastewater Authority. Encina is a joint powers authority owned by 6 member agencies that include the City of Carlsbad, City of Vista, Encinitas, Buena Sanitation, Vallecillos Water District, and Lucadia Wastewater District. Our service area covers about 123 square miles and is a population of close to about 400,000 people. The wastewater treatment plant itself is located in the City of Carlsbad, right on the coast. If you aren't familiar with SoCal, we're about 30 miles north of downtown San Diego. We average about 20 million gallons a day at our main treatment plant, 6 MGD at our sister plant, and we discharge out through our outfall pipe into the Pacific Ocean. We currently operate at about 50% capacity. We send a small portion of the water, about 5 MGD, to an adjacent reclamation plant used for local irrigation use. Our source control program is made up of 3 inspectors and 1 manager, so we're a pretty small program. Between the 4 of us, we perform all of the routine duties you'd see in any approved program that would include monitoring, inspections, permitting, plan checks, enforcement, public outreach, and even more recently, database development. As far as number of permittees go, we are currently in the ballpark of just over 500 total permits, and that include anything from categorical zero discharge, special use dewatering permits, all the way to your categorical pharmaceutical manufacturers, metal finishers, and our flow-based SIUs. Just to give you a little bit of a look into how much data we enter into PIMS. An average quarter, we have about 75 different monitoring events between industry monitoring and POTW monitoring, and it is almost a little over 2,000 parameter results. So when we were first making this presentation, I originally thought I could have made an entire PowerPoint solely based on the challenges that we were having with our old system. We had everything from core process issues to small daily annoyances. We had a major lack of integration between where data was entered, where violations and enforcement were being tracked, and where documents were being stored, all in separate places. Simple tasks such as creating like a notice of violation were just taking too much time because we had to go into the application to see the data. We had to go into SharePoint to fetch a template, go into Word to edit the template, go into spreadsheets for tracking, and so on and so forth. It was just really cumbersome and tedious. Our old system was an off-the-shelf product and essentially offered zero customization for what we wanted. We wanted to add certain data fields that weren't offered, and then we had data fields we weren't using, taking up valuable screen real estate. So for instance, the program only allowed for 1 address per permit as a data field. Well, we had a couple industries that had an address that was different from the actual physical site address. So that wasn't working out for us. So in order for us to capture all of the information we needed to effectively run the program, we had to resort to double, triple, sometimes quadruple entry between the tool itself, Microsoft Word, Visio, and Excel, which was prone to human error and not a good thing for us. So as pretreatment inspectors, we obviously had no idea how to build a database or how to develop a tool that could fix all of the problems we were having. But using a pretty broken system, we knew what core processes we'd want out of the tool if we did want to build it from scratch. So the first thing that we wanted was this enhanced integration. We wanted to have everything in one place, so no more triple entry, if at all, no more double entry. We wanted all the data linked to the document storage, linked to the event tracking, and then all accessible from one place. We didn't want to have to hop back from tool to tool. The second was advanced automation. A good chunk of the work we perform is similar from one permit to the next. So, how much can we automate to make our jobs easier, reduce errors, and still produce really quality reports? A ton of data gets put into the system. Um, can the system pull out that information into a format that we like, and then generate documents such as chain of custodies, permits, fact sheets, and enforcement? And the last thing was increased efficiency. With only 3 inspectors and 1 manager performing all the duties of a federally mandated program, how can we spend less time fiddling with the data and document storage in this really clunky software and spend more time doing our actual regulatory work? And just to give you a little bit of behind the scenes, Mike Panagis is going to take over here before I end off with the demo of PIMS.
Thanks, Michael. So when we started this engagement with Encina, and we started working together, the question was, where do we fit in the solution? And basically, our position is, where does the customer is a subject matter expert. So everything that was to be developed and defined came from the Encina team. What we are is technologists, and we take those requirements and we then build out the solution as required. And how did we build out the solution? Well, we from the ground up. We came in, we had no preconceived notion of what the system was, what it should do. We really depended on Encina defining exactly what they wanted to do and what they wanted out of the tool. So what's more important as we come into these engagements, it's not only technical questions, but it's also more important questions like, how do you do your job today? What are you missing? Are you ready for a change, right? That's really the pivotal things that will kind of dictate if a project will be successful or not. And that's the kind of attitude and approach we had. So how did we get engaged with Encina? It started off initially with just improved reporting. So they were running their legacy system, and basically there was a lack of visibility in terms of data, right, and information. So we just came in and we build reports. We're a Microsoft business partner. We build the reports using Power BI, and we also created linkages between data items for improved insight, linkages that didn't exist in the native system. And that was kind of the initial phase of it. As we were working together with Encina, and as we were kind of figuring this out, we identified an opportunity to build something more than just this reporting, and also go beyond the existing tool that they had, but conceptualize a tool that would be a one-stop shop, right? One place where all of the inspectors could use on a daily basis and could basically do everything that they needed to do. So that we needed better integration with the external systems. We needed, document management that allowed, a huge amount of flexibility, automation wherever possible. And all this would kind of increase the efficiencies and eliminate errors and make the performance a lot more predictable. So what we did is we created a centralized tool that inspectors would use every day. Right now, we'll talk a little bit about how we built it, and we'll talk about the nature of what's going on in the IT industry, and this will kind of drive a little bit the approach. So, our position is that custom packages solutions are dead. And why are they dead? Why do we take that position? Well, it's kind of simple. We see them as restrictive. Typically, they work in a certain way, and you have to work the way the tool works. It's got very limited flexibility. It's typically done one size fits all, right? So basically, you can have a lot of features that you won't use, some that maybe are not there. And once again, it's kind of restrictive as far as approach. It could be costly. There's initial cost, and then there's this forever licensing that's going on right now in the industry, which is something that customers need to kind of take into account. Usually, if you have these factors where it's restrictive, doesn't do what you want to do, the adoption rate is quite low, right? And that doesn't set you up for success. And then there's a lot of what we call friction costs, which means that when you bring it into the environment, into your environment, rather than being a positive uh, um, influence or a positive result, right, within it, it actually creates more friction and actually is counterproductive. So we take the position that this is not the way to build solutions anymore, and we'll go into what's going on in the industry and how this is changing. And just to talk about how this is true, there's a lot of when you look at a lot of the surveys out there, but about 50%, half of the installed software in organizations typically go unused. So a huge amount of investment with very little kind of results, right, to see it. So what's our position? What do we think is a different way to go? Well, as I mentioned, we're a Microsoft business partner. So we truly believe that one, Microsoft has a very, very powerful suite of products that can basically build a large number, if not most, of the applications that customers need today. And most of the customers either are already licensing these products or at a very small incremental cost could add these products within their portfolio, right? So that's the first thing. So you want to take products that are well built, that are very full featured, and see how you can use them. Now, Microsoft now and the industry in general has gone even further with these things, and they've taken these products and they've implemented them in something called low-code platforms. You'll hear this term a lot about low-code development and so on. It's a technical term in terms of developing or creating development tools that are working at a much higher level than traditional tools. So it's very business oriented, but this whole concept of now building it in a platform becomes even more powerful. And what does that mean? Well, typically there's a handful of features that a platform has to provide to be able to build these solutions. One is around information management. The second is around application logic. You also need some workflow automation. You need business analytics, and the really hot topic right now is AI with capabilities that is built in the platforms. Well, Microsoft does have that, and it's called the Power Platform. And when you're talking about application, about info management, it's SharePoint and Dataverse. We'll go into details on those. It's Power Apps for application logic. You've got Power Automate for workflow automation, Power BI for business analytics, and then the AI Builder for the AI component. So you take the basic products, you put it into a very powerful low-code platform, and then you start kind of utilizing that. But what's the next step after that? That's where we come in. And what we've done is we've we take this approach where we build out a platform built around these products to have very specific components. And it all starts around collaboration. So one thing that you'll see around these solutions, and as Michael will go through the demo and so on, a lot of it is the sharing and the collaboration around data, right? So you're going to have an enablement of collaboration that enables users not only to bring in information, but share it, and securely is another big topic. So you've got the collaboration, then you've got the integration of your existing systems and the data that comes into the systems, right? So you've got to have a way to go get that. And also, users will typically, if there's a gap in your operational systems or if there's data that's unavailable, they'll create their own data. And rather than push that out, you want to bring it in, but you want to bring it in an organized manner, right? So we encourage to identify all the data that's out there, both in your operational systems or created by users. Then we bring it in and we manage it within the system. So now you've got all your raw information able to be distributed and shared, but that's not enough. So what you have to do is you have to start bringing this information in, and you've got to start extracting, transforming, and loading the information, and you put that into a business data repository, right? This is a structured repository that is built for the business function that you're trying to address, right? So, for example, with the PIMS solution, we build out a business data repository with a PIMS data model that resulted in being able to support all the data that was required for the solution. From there, you now have the capability of building reports. You can build business applications. You basically have a business intelligence sub-platform, and now you've implemented your low-code platform and all the products in a way that makes sense. Now, this is agnostic to a solution. As you see, there's nothing PIMS specific here. And we have a lot of customers who have initiated certain solutions, and then build out this platform for different solutions. If you're talking about a PIMS solution, your operational systems will typically be something, data coming in from LIMS, from WIMS, maybe even your financial systems. You then build out the application itself and build out the reports, and you have your solution. So that's basically the approach we took with Encina as we were going through the development of this solution. Now, building solutions in this way really matters because it really lowers your costs. It enables great level of agility because of just the nature of the tools. Lower the risks since you're now being able to deliver and to develop what you need in a way that's iterative and predictable. The customer experience is much more improved, and overall you just have enhanced productivity. So all the cons that we were talking about in packaged solutions suddenly go away, and actually they become positive points. So we built out the solution and so on, and then we started talking to Encina, working together and saying, okay, now let's look at the solution and what do you need to do, right? And what we looked at was we wanted a fully integrated application with all required features. What we noticed is that literally the world and the day-to-day activities of the inspectors really revolved around events. And these events could be samples, they could be violations, enforcements, inspections, permits, or other types of events, right? And what we also noticed was that the events were interrelated. So samples were tied to violations to enforcement. In fact, they were all interconnected and could be interconnected in any way. So we needed a system that enabled us to manage these events, manage the interconnection of these events. We added a component of a setup component in terms of setting up the system so that it could be tweaked, and then to administer the system. We then also created an events and a calendar facility so that capability so that people could manage their time, and then presented this to the user. So now what the user has is a way to basically manage everything that's going on within their environment, and be able to manage it in a way that is centralized and that can be most productive. So basically, when you take your subject matter expertise and you blend it with the right type of technology and the technological approach, you can really create something that is quite positive and really increases productivity. So this is the approach. This is the way we went about it. I'll now turn it over to Michael. He will actually go into a live demo of the system and start showing some key features and give you an idea of exactly how the system manifests itself. Michael.
All right, thanks, Mike. So here's PIMS. Here's what it looks like. It just works in a browser. And what's nice is that there's also an app, a Power App on your phone, which we discovered recently, which you can actually take this into the field and use it if you need to as well. What I'm going to actually start with is a Power BI report. So this is kind of why we have PIMS. PIMS stores all of the data that we need for all of the industries, monitoring, inspections, enforcement, and all that good stuff. So how do you pull out all of that information and make it usable for an annual report or for a manager who's requesting a summary of the activity for a calendar year? Well, we can do it through Power BI, and this is something that Nexinite has built out for us. Our Power BI report has 10 different pages on it that, varies anything from parameter compliance to our sampling events, permitting summaries, and violations and enforcements as well. This one here, just to give you a little bit of an overview, this is our permitting. So every annual report, we will put in how many active permits we had by classification and what member agency they're in. So very quickly, just by entering a date, I can filter by any of these top tabs up here and then output a list, essentially. All of these pages work pretty similarly, where you only need a date and then additional filters if you want. A really good example that I like to show is this enforcement. So before, we didn't have a real good way of looking at enforcement summaries with our old program and tool. So this allows us to be able to, again, by classification and date range, see the total summary of enforcement we brought in for a calendar year. We are a smaller program, so we don't have a ton of penalties, and then the non-routine enforcement costs associated with each one. By hovering over each one, I can see the summary of the compliance that occurred in each of these events and a breakdown by month as well. Going into PIMS itself, PIMS is a super permit-centric tool. Everything revolves around individual permit number and its associated industry name. Every one of the data fields here is customized for us, and we picked it because that's what fit our needs and our level of detail. So what you may see, it might not be ideal for your agency, but if you decide to go build out one of these tools, you can customize it to what you want to see. Oh, I do want to mention that throughout this demo, I'm going to be comparing PIMS quite a bit to our old system. And it's going to sound like I'm bashing on the old system, but it's really just to give you an idea of why we picked the things we did and certain things that were not in the old system that we wanted to fix with the new system. Okay, so here's how you create a new permit. Essentially, it's very form-filling style type of application. Again, these are all custom and picked for the reasons that we wanted to have them. Everything basic, such as industry name, permit number, a couple dates, and then member agency. These are just things that we would like to have in here. Along with permits goes sample points. Sample points are a super important function for any pretreatment program that is going to be performing sampling. So within a sample point, we have their legal description that we have on their permit, sampling notes if needed, and then, of course, a picture, so that it would be a picture here of the facility's sampling point so that a person would be able to go up to the facility and never seen it before and then visit the actual sampling point. Within each sample point is a monitoring table. So every single sample point will have their local limits and then any associated federal limits to which they're responsible and subject to. So their frequency is all put in by us, so we know exactly what quarters that they need to sample. And then all of this is built into PIMS and related to their chain of custody generation. So whenever I go generate a chain of custody, it's going to know the sample date and pull up the parameters that they need to monitor for. Before, in our old system, we didn't have a great way of tracking document control numbers. This was all a whole manual process that we had to do before. Now, anytime we generate an NOV, a chain of custody, or a document that needs a number, it'll get stuck in this page here, and it just allows us to easily track all of these documents. And then again, because it's in PIMS, it all goes back into the document storage, which is all integrated with PIMS. So I can easily just open up this document here and see that this chain of custody was associated to that number. So I'm just going to go through each of these events here. This is our sample tracking. So this is how we enter data and track all of the results that come from IU monitoring and POGW monitoring, so internal and external monitoring. We enter all of our data manually, but Nexinite does have the capability of doing automated data entry just by pretty simple Excel document conversions. Anytime we enter sample data, it goes and compares it to that monitoring master that I reviewed before, and it'll compare the result you enter versus the limit that is set for that permit. So if the result that you enter is higher than the limit, it'll highlight it red, indicating that there needs to be follow-up enforcement or a violation response. All this data gets tracked and then can be read in the Power BI report that I showed earlier as a summary. This is very simple and easy for us to read. And so whenever you have a violation from a monitoring event, then we can go into the violations and create a violation event. So this violation event tracking is helpful for us because we do all of our violation tracking is on a rolling 12-month basis. So for any industry, I can filter by the industry name, type in a specific date, and then see how many violations they've had in that 12 months. So for instance, I'll know for this industry, the next BOD violation that they have is going to be their third violation in this 12 months. So then I can respond with the appropriate escalating enforcement. Once that violation is tracked, then the next obvious step is going to be the enforcement creation. So this is going to be the NOV creation. So when we generate an NOV, it kind of follows that same form filling style, just like all throughout PIMS. This allows us to not have spelling errors or date errors like we were having with the old system. This is just very easy, left to right, up to down. Once you fill out all of these necessary fields, we pick one of the 14 templates that we have saved and generated for all of our most common violations. We pick the template that's needed. We essentially hit save and generate, and then it outputs an NOV. So open one here. So what PIMS does is it'll take all of the data that's inputted into each of these fields and throw it onto a template, which is nice because then it eliminates a lot of the human error that would have gone into generating all of these manually in the past. What's nice, what we wanted integration with this new system. So now the actual NOVs are tied to each of these events. We don't have to go to a separate place to go see the document from the actual event tracking itself. The next tool that we have is inspection tracking. All of our annual inspection, our class 1, 2, 3 permits, we have to visit at least once per year. So this helps if the manager wants to see how many inspections do we need to do left in 2024. You can enter a date and see the list. You can search by which inspector still has to do inspections for this year. You can sort by member agency. Again, this is all custom for what we wanted to do and can be changed on the fly. Okay, so go to this. So in the back end of PIMS, we have the document structure is pretty simple. All of our templates are stored here. So you can see that we have a template for chain of custodies, for each of the NOVs, fact sheets. So everything that we want to do can be changed, or let's say we want to change one of the templates. We don't necessarily need Nexinite to go in and make this change. We can open the template because it's a Word doc, make the change here ourselves, and then now we have that moving forward. So it is that level of customizability. It's really nice and what we wanted because we didn't have that with our old system. So because we're such a small program, we wanted to not spend the bulk of our time entering data, fiddling with kind of clunky software. We wanted to, do regulatory work. So we saw the most amount of time saved came from not having to just track all of the violations and enforcement and data between Excel, Word, Visio, and then the tool itself. We became a pretty efficiently run program where PIMS is doing all of the tracking for us now. All I have to do is come in and filter my list and I can see everything I want to see without, having to go through different tools. Generating the annual report, we have a lot of that coming through Power BI now. So, that saves my manager a ton of time from having to do all of those calculations manually for S&C and inspection summaries. We can now get all of that through PIM summaries.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation, Michael T. and Michael P. Thank you to our presenters. Thank you to everyone who joined, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.